Today on Locked On Suns, the moment we've all been waiting for, Jordan Ott, the next head coach. 4-year deal, first-timer, and of course a Michigan State guy. We'll break all of it down. Let's go.
You are Locked On Suns, your daily Phoenix Suns podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back into Locked On Phoenix Suns. I'm Brendon Kleen, a staff writer at Awful Announcing and a credentialed Suns media member. Thank you for making Locked On Suns your first listen here on this Wednesday. Don't forget Locked On Suns, free and available on all platforms, including YouTube. Just click that follow or subscribe button. Do what thousands of other Suns fans have already done. Become an everydayer. Get locked on to the Phoenix Suns right here each and every day. Today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So much to get to with the hiring of Jordan Ott as the next head coach of the Phoenix Suns, the fourth in 4 years, as we all know. Joining me to break it down, as always, from the Wild West Valley, my fellow Suns credential media member. How are we feeling, Ben Garcia?
Cleveland! This is for
jersey?
you! Yeah. It's a LeBron jersey that I didn't know I'd be using for a Locked On Suns show 7 years later when I bought it. I make the Cleveland joke, but should we just start playing the Michigan State Spartans fight song? Should we just start doing that? I mean, listen,
Do you
man.
know it? I don't know it.
No, I don't even know the ASC.
We got to learn it.
Man,
I feel like we're going to
ASC.
have to recite it to be able to enter the building going forward.
You feel aligned? You feeling aligned?
I do.
You feel it? Okay. Jordan Ott, new head coach. Can't say I'm surprised.
Nope. Can't say I'm surprised. Although I picked it and you didn't. You picked Johnny Bryant. I said it would be Ott.
I went down with the ship when I saw it, but I can't say I was surprised, but
No.
yeah, God. Social media is a hellscape right now, man.
Yeah, I will get to all of it. We definitely will. And I think some of it's fair, some of it's less fair. But just to quickly go back over his resume so we know what we're talking about here. He is obviously a first-time head coach. He is the Cleveland Cavaliers assistant, not the associate head coach. That was the other guy. He has worked under Mike Budenholzer in Atlanta. He has worked under Kenny Atkinson, Steve Nash, and Jacques Vaughn in Brooklyn, and Darvin Ham with the Lakers before most recently under Atkinson once again for the number one seeded Cavaliers. He is a young guy. I would say, around...
I think he's 32. I checked. Or I think he's a little bit older than that. That's not right.
Yeah. But
I think he's 39. 40. He's 40.
Younger than
40
Vogel, younger than Bud. This is a different breed of guy and an offensive tactician. You know, we talked about the other day, he was Steve Nash's, called by Steve Nash, and we'll get to him later. But in Brooklyn, during the time when Durant and Kyrie and Harden were there, a super team with championship expectations, this is the dude who was dialing up that offense for a first-time head coach in Steve Nash and was a trusted kind of right-hand man. So there is a resume there, Ben, and I think that's kind of where we have to start. This is a guy that we said Johnny Bryant felt like he was next up. You know, by the end of the week, maybe he's the Knicks coach. I don't know. But that's not to say that Jordan Ott is a Brian Gregory of coaches or somebody who is purely getting this job because of who he knows and where he's been. This is a dude that has accomplished a lot and I think could do a very good job as an NBA head coach.
I agree. It's all things that you said. I'm not even going to mention, I joked about it in the beginning, the Michigan State stuff, but I don't even want to mention that. There's no reason to. I'm not coming on here today. Like, did I want Johnny Bryant to get the job? Sure. But Jordan Ott was under Kenny Atkinson twice. I like Kenny Atkinson a lot. I'm not going to come on here whining and crying like a lot of people are doing. Jordan Ott has earned the right to be a head coach. I know just as much about him as I knew about the other candidates. Sure, he wasn't my top 5 head coaching guy, but they hired him, and I'm okay with it. And from, the guy that I've talked to who covers Locked On Cavs, that was his guy. Jordan Ott has earned a spot to be a head coach in the NBA. the one thing I will say is if Johnny Bryant, let's say he does get the job with the New York Knicks, those two are going to be conjoined at the hip forever and see who has the better career in terms of head coaching. So I'm all for it, man. I'm not going to do this whining and crying thing that you and I did with Brian Gregory, and we had the right to do. This guy's qualified for the job.
I do think maybe tomorrow we can dig into that more, why it's different, right? Because, but briefly, like, my issues with Brian Gregory were the lack of a search, the lack of expertise, the lack of experience, not expertise, experience, the lack of a resume that would make an NBA executive ready to be a GM, and what he said at the press conference, where he basically said that the reason he got the job and what he's going to do while in the job all go back to Matt Ishbia and the relationships that he has with Ishbia and Bartelstein and the other guys who got promotions and whatnot. I didn't like that. There was a search this time. Jordan Ott does have the experience and a lot of it that I've pointed out things, Bruce Brown playing center for the Nets, or what they were able to do taking that Lakers team to the conference finals in Darvin Ham's first season, much way ahead of schedule, fitting guys in like D'Angelo Russell, who you wouldn't have thought would necessarily work out there, and helping Austin Reeves develop. There's a lot you can look at. And we'll see what he says at the press conference. But I think it would be an overreaction to say that the only thing he's going to do is have this type of alignment and everything else. But we'll get to that more in a second. The one thing that this guy does have that you and I had been hoping for, that we were kind of worried might not end up being the case, is he's an offensive guy. And I think that that's a big thing that you have to focus on rather than just getting hung up in the narratives, is everywhere he's gone, this dude has gotten big kudos from big names in this sport for his tactician ability, his innovativeness, his creativity, player development on the offensive side of the ball. And we know that this team is going to need that to put Book in better positions to succeed, to help the young guys develop into better offensive players, whoever this roster ends up bringing in this summer, versus the past 2 years where it's just been slow, ISO, disgusting to watch basketball. I'm excited to see what he can do.
I'm excited for it too. I'm not going to come on here and complain. I think you had mentioned he's earned the spot to be here. I wanted Johnny Bryant. It's fine that he's not here either. I wouldn't even say, like, I know he like, for the things you point out, he's an offensive tactician, but we've talked about this before. I don't know if I would classify Jordan Ott really as anything. I know he had a lot of say in the offensive side of the ball, but especially in Cleveland. But I mean, like, listen, man, Spoelstra, you've mentioned this before, Mazzulla, Pop, like, we don't know what their specialties are. Sure, I would say Ott probably leans offense, but like, what if in these conversations, like, they're just trying to find a leader too, and he was the best leader for the job? Like, at some point, we have to talk about this team, like, winning basketball games. I'm sorry, man, it's kind of in the future. Like, we'll talk about that when we get there. We have to start at step one, build a culture, have a leader. Jordan Ott, listen, I'll defend it. He might be a great leader. He might be someone that fell in line with Booker. I mean, gave him his word as well. So I'm with it, man. I think Jordan Ott's going to be a good hire for this team. Think about Budenholzer, right? We were all, myself, everyone was shaking hands and kissing babies at the press conference. That's how thrilled they were with getting Mike Budenholzer. And it didn't work out. And this idea that it's not change, it might just not be change for us. But what Ishbia is doing now is something he should have done a couple years ago. He's bringing in his guys, man. And he's doing it now. And you know what? I like the hire. Might have not been my first choice. But like, that's my ultimate first reaction to it is I think he's going to be a good head coach here.
And the reason it is changed too, we got to remember, right? If you're talking about, this was just, Ishbia had the final say when he met with them in Michigan, and all he can think about is, green and white and blah, blah, blah. You got to remember, in 2023, when they hired Vogel, the rumors were, I think that Ishbia probably wanted Nick Nurse first.
Mm-hmm.
Philly just stole him right away.
Mm-hmm.
Then you started to hear that Ishbia may have wanted Doc Rivers back then. And obviously that didn't happen, but they kind of snuck him in the back door for a late interview in that process, and I don't know what ultimately happened. I believe he didn't take a job that year until halfway through. And they end up with Vogel. Then 2024, Bud is the doc of that search, right? Bud is the Nick Nurse of that search. So even if this was heavily influenced by Ishbia, that also signals a change for him to not think of the old, stodgy, experienced guy whose name I know because they've been on TV or they've won a title before or whatever. This is a guy we have no idea about, a guy who is getting a fresh start. So I just want people to kind of like, if you have concerns about it, that's fair. But let's be specific about what the weaknesses that you've said, they very well could be there, but also things that are different about this and that could work out better than others. It's not all the same just because it all traces back to, East Lansing. So, but it is hard. It's hard to talk about this search without talking about who it wasn't. Johnny Bryant, other guys that don't have those connections, the book factor. So let's get into that, right? What really led to this decision, even if we agree it was influenced by Ishbia and everything else? Why did they pick him? Next. First, today's show brought to you by the FanDuel Sportsbook. What do we got here? $200 in bonus bets? Yeah, that's right. FanDuel makes it easy during the NBA playoffs and the NBA Finals to stay in the game every night, delivering highlight-worthy performances, major momentum shifts, and can't-miss moments, whether it's a game-winning shot or a breakout player. There's never been a better time to get in on the action. And once again, FanDuel makes it easy. Before tip-off and even live, to get in on the action with player props, performance trends, and same-game parlays, fans have more ways than ever to play smart and win big. I've been pointing you toward the WNBA because, look, there's a big top tier of teams in that league, and they beat up on the bad teams. And the Washington Mystics are huge underdogs at home on Thursday night. The New York Liberty, minus 900. So go to FanDuel.com. It's the perfect time to sign up. Place your first $5 bet on those Liberty. When it wins, well, not really. I can't guarantee anything, but if it wins, that minus 900 favorite, $200 in bonus bets. It's that easy. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, Ben, let's dive into some of the reporting that has come out subsequently. And I'm just going to put it to you as a question here, all right? So, Ott, he's 40. I caught that on Shams' story. Been an NBA assistant coach since 2012. Strong offensive and defensive creativity, player development, toughness, a strong communicator with his players and his fellow coaches, who spends an incredible amount of time studying trends and adjustments and new tactics around the league. That was Shams' encapsulation. All right? Let's just say that's one thing. The MSU connection and the preference for that state being the breeding ground for all the people making decisions in the Phoenix Suns, that's obviously another thing. Then we had John Gambadoro here, who reported that Phoenix was attracted to Ott because of how he presented a sophisticated offensive system, but Suns star Devin Booker also gave Ott the stamp of approval. And Suns two-time MVP Steve Nash, who was the head coach and Ott's boss on the Brooklyn Nets from 2020 to 2022, had positive feedback as well. So if those are the three buckets, Ben, which of those feels the closest to why this decision was ultimately made in your mind?
Devin Booker. I don't think it's very close. The Suns over the last couple of seasons, like the Nash thing is good, right? Love hearing that Nash is giving the stamp of approval to Jordan Ott. That's cool. We worked with him. It actually is a really good PR move too. I wouldn't have thought for the Suns to be able to just go into the Nash bucket and get positive feedback on that as well. But the Booker side of it, man, we've talked about this for a couple years. He wanted Kevin Young. Well, Kevin Young's doing pretty good with BYU. Just had a Sweet 16 appearance. And, the number one overall recruit is going to BYU next year in college basketball. And then you also mentioned before Chauncey Billups. He just got a contract extension. Devin Booker, if you're trying to keep him happy, has earned the right to pick his own head coach, or at least have a big say in it. So him getting the stamp of approval, it also just so we're clear, this might sound a little crazy, but I want Devin Booker at the press conference on Thursday. I don't need him speaking, but if this is your stamp of approval guy, and I'm going to give that to you, I want you there rooting on your guy. So that one means a lot to me. And it also kind of gives the Suns a little cover of hey guys, it's not just us. You're a franchise player. You can't lie about that. Wanted him here. So yeah, Booker means way more. What about you?
I think that's accurate. I would build off of that and kind of combine it with that chunk of Shamsa's story as well, though, because if we try to think of why Booker would have liked him, I think that, creativity, that's fine. But at the end of the day, we don't really know, like you said. I mean, Bryant is also an offense-first guy. So is Kenny Atkinson. So we can't give Ott credit for the Cavs' offense, right? And even in Brooklyn, he's offensive coordinator, but Steve Nash was a MVP point guard, and Mike D'Antoni was an advisor for that team. So I'm also not going to... So, if I'm Devin Booker sitting there, maybe he heard some things. Maybe they talked X's and O's a little bit. I'm sure they did in some of the interviews, or if they met separately, whatever. But that's probably not what's going to get me over the hump with the guy. If I'm a player, that's all fine and good. Book's had, what is this, his 7th or 8th different coach at this point?
7.
He's had, I was going to say he's had the book thrown at him, pun intended, I guess, about all that before, right? He's heard Jay Triano talk about tactics. It only takes you so far.
I forgot about him.
Right? So I think Book, if that did weigh heavily, which I tend to agree it probably did, the toughness and the communication has to be the thing that cut through here, right? Because we assumed it would be Johnny Bryant or Chris Quinn, because those are dudes who have established relationships with players who both played high-level basketball. Obviously, Quinn much more than Bryant. But clearly Book didn't fully see it that way. And so for him to think that over these other guys, that tells me a lot. And I don't think it's because of the tactics. I think it has to be because of the communication and the competitiveness that came through when he sat down face to face with Jordan Ott, and that holds weight for me. That makes me feel a little bit better about it if Book thought that highly of him.
I'm kind of surprised Booker did give the stamp approval on Jordan Ott, though, because Jordan Ott, I've been watching a lot of interviews, literally just press conference availabilities, because I just want to hear how these guys talk. I think that matters. That matters a lot to me. I don't know why, but it just does. Hearing Johnny Bryant, he was a little bit more, not in a super colorful way, but he was a little bit more vibrant. I've watched especially one really long form interview with Jordan Ott. He's real meat and potatoes, man. This might just be a guy who's just lives, eats, sleeps basketball and fits the comp of what you mentioned a couple of days ago. Not these guys as coaches, because we don't know what he's going to be, but the personality, JJ Redick, Joe Mazzulla. The Suns might just need that guy.
In the finals right now.
Perfect.
Yep. That's where the league is going, for sure.
Yeah.
Those guys.
It's just we mentioned before, there's both ways of succeeding. We've seen the Johnny Bryant guy succeed before. We've seen the Jordan Ott way succeed before. I'm just a little surprised that because we talked about relationships, meshed with Devin Booker so much. Because, I mean, Budenholzer, a little bit of an older guy, was kind of a different meat and potatoes type of way, but he didn't really get along with Devin Booker from what's been reported. And
it seems like he kind of got away from being meat and potatoes and started being kind of a dictator.
Yeah. Emphasis on the first part.
Grinding so much. Yeah. He wasn't grinding in the film room anymore like he might have when he was Pop's number 2 20 years ago. Lately, it seems like Bud had just turned into I get my main attribute is to kind of bully dudes and be my way or the highway, which just it's not a surprise why that wouldn't work. So, but yeah, I wouldn't have thought that we would have heard that report come out so quickly that Book.
Suns are trying to cover themselves.
Yeah, and maybe if you're super negative about this hire, you think that might be exaggerated a little bit, or you don't fully buy it, and maybe that's fair. Maybe you could say that leak comes out so that it's less about Michigan State right away and everything. But Book could just easily dispute that if he wanted to. So you can't make it up, right?
Well, yes. And I think obviously maybe Book doesn't seem like a guy that kind of wants that stuff out there. I don't know why. He just doesn't seem like that kind of guy. So I'm sure the Suns asked him as well if that was okay, if they could do that. But, man, the more I see like the Nash and the Booker stuff, the more, just so I'm being clear, I'm buying into this hire. I'm not selling it like I was Gregory. This is a mostly positive thing for me. I'm just curious if the Suns did everything they could to not hire this guy. And if Jordan Ott just kept, because they didn't, you think they want the Michigan State thing today? What if the Suns just were like, this guy keeps forcing our hand. He keeps giving good answer after good answer. We're begging for Johnny Bryant to win this thing, but Booker likes him. Nash likes him. He's giving us sophisticated answers. He tells us what he wants to do clearly. We have to hire this guy. And just so we're clear, if that's how it went down, I don't care what school he went to. This is exactly what the Suns needed to do. Go against the grain, get your guy, but just know we're going to grade you really harshly on this guy. And I also will say I do think he gets minimum 3 years. Granted, I also said the same thing about Coach Budenholzer. So we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, you definitely got to give him 2.
2.5. I'll say 2.5 in case that last season goes haywire.
All right. At that point, it starts to be time to, if you're a coaching agent, you're talking about an extension. You don't want guys to get too close to the end of their contract. Like Tibbs, he got fired before his extension started this past year. Nuts. Very similar to Monty. So, I think last thing here, do you think that they didn't pick Johnny Bryant because is he just about to be the Knicks coach?
I don't want to get into that, but I will. If
quickly, it doesn't matter anymore.
Yes,
who cares?
Yes,
but it's worth talking about because it was down to 2 and it's not.
Well, Dan Hurley already said he's not doing that. It was already probably a far-fetched idea, anyways. But he already said he's not doing that. Mike Malone's name I think has been spun around, but man, if I'm the Knicks, why wouldn't I go Johnny Bryant? But maybe he doesn't want to go there. But if he does, I'm not gonna lie to you, that would suck. But it is what it is.
I don't know why. I don't know if we'll ever hear about it. Nobody's going to want to talk about why you don't hire a coach because his reps are going to not want to highlight things that he didn't, that he wasn't good enough at. And the Suns are going to, it's sour grapes at that point. It doesn't matter. So I don't know. It surprises me, but I'd also just ask it because at the end of the day, it's like, anybody that gets put into a position in part because of their connections, you can't overlook it entirely. If Jordan Ott didn't go to Michigan State, he probably isn't the coach right now. We can just be honest about that too. But because he probably doesn't get in the room is more my point, right? I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but I think he was put into a position to wow them and impress Devin Booker and show off his tactical ability in large part because they had common ground. I don't think it has to be Michigan State. That could be true if, what if Brian Gregory crossed paths with somebody when he was coaching South Florida? What if we had heard he knew Chris Quinn because he coached there and Chris Quinn was in Miami and they met and got along and it'd be the same thing. I'd be saying the same thing, but maybe that I bring that up just to say maybe that's why Johnny Bryant didn't get it, is he didn't have enough of that common ground. That does happen.
But just so we're clear, and I know you're saying this, but I want the comment section that's already rushing to the comment section to say something crazy. Literally everywhere does that. Literally
all of
everywhere.
It can be true. Yeah.
Literally every company will take someone that they know a lot better, but maybe has a little bit less qualifications because it makes them feel better. The Suns are not unique in that.
Yep. Let's get to what this means going forward. We've already heard a little bit of what the next priorities will be for the Suns. And I believe Ben has a question to throw at me about the next steps as well. All right, closing out the show. From Shams Charania on ESPN, moments after the hire was made, Ben, with their coaching hires set, the Suns now begin the franchise's off-season of change to the roster. The Suns will work with all-star forward Kevin Durant and his business partner, Rich Kleiman. We don't need to say boardroom every time. We all know that they own that company. On his next landing spot, he is expected to have a robust market of approximately 4 to 6 seriously interested teams this offseason, sources said. We've heard, Gambo said Jared Dudley could be an assistant. We've heard Gambo say the Durant trade will happen before the draft. Obviously, this offensive, maybe offense first philosophy could affect who they take at 29 and maybe with the other draft picks that they're able to acquire this year. And there's all sorts of things that this means. It's a huge voice who changes the direction of the franchise when you hire a head coach. What are you looking at next, Ben, as this big step is now done and we can look forward to the rest?
It's pretty clear Jordan Ott does not, I don't want to put words in his mouth. It's pretty clear he doesn't need Kevin Durant here. Like, if he thought the only way his offense could succeed, it'd be Kevin Durant, but Shams Charania,
or he was told you're not getting KD, so who cares?
Do you think that they said that? Do you think they were like, hey, no matter what, we're trading Kevin Durant?
I think there were certain candidates based upon relationships more than strategy, where maybe they could have gone forward with KD. Somebody like Royale Ivy or some of the names that popped up in the first round who really had strong connections. There was a couple of other guys that dated back to OKC. Obviously, Dave Bliss could be one if you wanted to make that case. But
Hetzel one of those guys too, I think.
Yeah, I believe Hetzel was one. Once it got down to these two, to me, and even the 5 before that, I kind of was like, yeah, Katie's not sticking around. I thought it was a tiny shot anyway. So I feel like by the time they were interviewing, by the time Ishbia was talking to Ott this week, they weren't talking about Kevin Durant and his fit, I don't think.
I would like to see them, like, the next domino needs to be moving on from KD. I'm really happy that they got this coach now because, dude, 3 weeks from today, from when we're recording this, which is technically 4 tomorrow, is the NBA draft. Like, I want to start to get an idea. What I really want to hear, I guess, first at the press conferences, hey, Ishbia and Brian Gregory have both told us big nothing burgers on what kind of players they want here. We're assuming it's just a bunch of Draymond Greens, Jace Richardsons, and Matt Ishbia as a walk-on for the Phoenix Suns, and they're just going to run the Michigan State team that won a championship back. But, like, what do you want? Do you value 2 bigs? Do you value more wings? Do you value small ball? You want to go get Bruce Brown and play him at the 5 again? Sure. What does that look like? Trading Kevin Durant. And once they trade KD, I'm assuming they're going to get a player or 2 back. I think that's going to tell us immediately. Like, if they get a center, okay, they're probably going to go a wing in the draft. If they get a couple of wings, okay, they're probably going to go center in the draft, and vice versa, basically in any order you want. So I want to see them move on from KD, and I want to see Jordan Ott's immediate first print of, like, okay, he likes Jabari Smith and Tari Eason. He likes these lengthy wings, or, he wants Jeremy Sohan here, and he likes Devin Vassell because he feels like he can win with those guys now, and he'll play with the 14th overall pick and have his say in a center. But that's where I would like to see them go. What about you?
I want to hear, everything right now. The only constant, which has been true for a while, but feels very true again now, is Devin Booker, right, in this organization. What does he think about? We've basically seen all the versions of Book at this point throughout his career. We've seen, on-ball, high usage with bad teammates. We've seen off-ball with traditional point guards. We've seen on-ball with other superstars. We've seen Olympic role player Book. Like, what does Ott have to say about the best version of Book? How is he going to put him in position to succeed? Like, I remember when Monty got hired, he kind of surprised all of us by dipping into his own coaching background and giving a comp that I don't think most people were expecting on at his opening press conference. He said, Book reminds me of Brandon Roy. And I helped develop Brandon, and I see a pathway to that with Book where he does a little bit of everything. And that sort of reformatted our opinions because up to that point, Book had just basically been the point guard with, like, Josh Jackson and, a bunch of nobodies around him. And we were all like, okay, Brandon Roy's a little different than how we've been thinking of Book. Okay, Ott's not going to shock us that way because it's been another 5 years and there's not a lot of different things to say at this point. But that's what I would be curious about is how does he feel like he's going to put Book in position to succeed? Is it important to get another playmaker, for instance? Is it important to get a shooting big man to spread the floor more, play faster? Hey, we think Book can really be a better post-up weapon and attack mismatches. He hasn't really done that before. I mean, I don't know how specific he'll get, but that's always what I want to hear because that's the best player, and that's gonna decide the most about the future.
Do you think that also played a role in why Booker gave the stamp of approval? Because he's like, I saw what you just did with Donovan Mitchell, and I'm better. And I would just go out and say this, Booker's better than Donovan Mitchell. You think he's like, I'm better than that guy. You did what you could do with him. I could be a potential MVP candidate one day. Because all I have in my head now is not Michigan State Spartans basketball. I actually have in my head is Cleveland Cavaliers basketball. And I think off of that is what relationships has Jordan Ott been able to, form while over in Cleveland? Like Ty Jerome was drafted here. He's a free agent this year. I don't know how the Suns would do that, but I'm just saying, does he bring over some of his Cavalier guys? Ty Jerome.
Well, he has connections everywhere at this point.
Well,
you're in the league for as long as you are. It's like,
Nick Claxton,
we talked about Al Horford as a minimum guy potentially. He coached him in Atlanta when he first was coming up. Like there's all those that are definitely there, but I would say for sure it would matter. That's something we probably should have said in the last segment, that in addition to the leadership and toughness stuff, like I would say Book's the one tactical thing he probably would be most interested in is how are you going to use me? Right? Mm-hmm. And I think he's a different player than Donovan, but I think the point is more Donovan had one of his best years. So clearly that shows being
First
able
teamer.
to match. Yeah, that shows being able to match a player with his teammates and open him up in new ways, regardless of if everybody's on identical stylistically. I think you'd have to feel pretty good if you're Book that, hey, I'm gonna be back to my normal All NBA self this season, even if my teammates are a little worse.
I would just have to ask you this as well, because of the Ishbia thing and Dan Gilbert. I would also encourage Suns fans to be like, listen, Ishbia hates Dan Gilbert. You don't think he wanted to get the best one out of these two? Like, do you think Michigan State thought that much of him, or do you think he wanted to get the guy that he thinks would hurt most? I'd be curious. I'd be curious that aspect, how people take it. And then
what
just
would actually
what
make me feel better on that too, though, on the Michigan State thing, is like if it was more than just the tangential connection, I'd like to hear if Tom Izzo thought the world of this guy.
Which is a great resume. Like, that's a great thing to be heard.
If, like, so many people have passed through that program, it's not like any old person who's ever been there is great. But if Tom Izzo was like, it was a really big regret that we lost him. I'm sure that'll pop up soon. Izzo will do some press conference interview and get asked about it. And I actually do want to hear what he has to say, because there's a million MSU alum, players, coaches, executives that the Suns could have chosen, right? Like, this isn't the only guy. Hetzel, for example, is another one. They didn't pick him. They picked this one. So I would kind of be curious, just what was that time like, and how did he make such an imprint that he rose up through the ranks more than other Michigan State people have?
And I said this earlier on my own YouTube channel and stuff, but I think it's worth reiterating. It's like, it's not Dayton. Like, they're not emulating Dayton, or they're not emulating Arizona State University basketball, or I don't know, New Mexico basketball. Like, they're emulating Michigan State. Like, you might not like that. And I think it's incredibly lazy just to point out to the schooling, because, again, he's qualified for this job. But, like, Michigan State's won a natty. They've been to a bunch of Final Fours. Like, it is a good program if you want to build an NBA version of that. So, listen, man, I know it seems like you and I are just hype training. You and I have spent weeks criticizing Ishbia for the Gregory hire, which, again, was a disaster the way that all went down.
Exactly.
I'm not ripping that here.
That's the thing. I'm not on a hype train. I just always try to maintain the perspective that multiple things can be true. he can have gotten in the room largely off of those connections and still be a good coach. Those both things can be true. I have a problem with Brian Gregory, but also, as I explained in the first segment, but I also think, I don't know, I'm not a genius. I can't predict the future. He could be a decent GM. I think Josh Bartelstein was hired without any number of qualifications that he should have had. He's proven to be his most involved decisions, I don't think have panned out. So I'm going to criticize that one. But it's useless for me with our audience to sit here and anytime I can halfway draw a line between the state of Michigan and the Phoenix Suns that I just immediately jump to negativity. That would just be useless. You could just press a button and a recording could play of the same opinion every time if that's what I was going to do. But I don't think it's the same, so my opinion's not the same. That's all it is.
If people want to bleep and moan like they've done on social media all day about this, I think it's lazy. I think it's all lazy. I think this guy could be awesome. And I just wish people would stop acting like they know everything about Jordan Ott. Or Chris Quinn, for that matter. We already
tried. Or Johnny Bryant. You know what? Like, it's so crazy how in order to make your opinion the strongest, people are able to just discount and completely go in one direction on another thing that they don't actually care about. So Johnny Bryant has to be awesome because you don't want the Michigan State guy to be a coach. We don't know if Johnny Bryant's a good coach. We think he could be. We've said he feels like he's up next in the pecking order. I have no clue. Johnny Bryant could get a job and suck. It's all a guessing game.
It literally.
We have no idea.
Listen, did anyone know who Mark Dagnall, JJ Redick, Joe Mazzulla, any of those guys that we just compared Jordan Ott to? No one thought those guys were going to be as awesome as they were right away, and they are. Like, it's all a crapshoot.
And similarly, there's other dudes who have been the next up who've gotten hired who have flamed out and not been very good.
Mm-hmm. Well, I just saw
Adrian Griffin in Milwaukee. That guy was similar. It's like he's been an assistant forever. Giannis loves him. This is the choice. He was out half of a season later.
I can't remember who it was. I know I like the guy, so I'm not going to go after him. But someone tweeted like, I don't know how you can defend this team still. I get being a fan, but like, I don't know how you can defend this team. And I'm like, who's defending it? We're just being honest. We don't know. He might be great. And you know what? I would ask his final question. Because this is a Gregory, Bartelstein was in the meeting as well with Ishbia meeting with these two candidates. I want to see all of them there. Bartelstein, Ishbia, Gregory, Booker. I need to see them all there at the press conference. We didn't see Ishbia at the Gregory one.
The first three will definitely be there, I think.
You're not sure if Booker will be. God, Booker better be there. If you put the stamp of approval on it, then go to Paris and do your thing and go hang out for the offseason. But like, who do you want to see there? I'm assuming everyone as well.
Yeah, I think everybody should show up because this is a big move and they got to get it right. It's been 3 straight whiffs. I mean, Monty wasn't hired and fired the same way as the other guys, but this one has to work. And if it was a unanimous decision the way that it's being painted, then it should be unanimously supported. As far as who we're going to actually hear from, that part I'm less
no.
Sure
Hear from
about.
no.
I would like to hear from Ishbia, but it might just be Gregory and Ott. I don't know.
Well, yeah, Ishbia always, just so we're fair, Ishbia always likes to tout that he's always there to answer questions. All right, man. See that podium? Go answer the questions. And he won't.
At the same time, they are trying to paint the picture that, he's not the overlord.
Well,
so,
today didn't do a good job of that.
He wants Gregory to get to answer for his own decision, quote unquote. So, yeah, I know. I would like to hear from Ishbia more, but owners in sports don't give press conferences every 2 months. That we can't necessarily hold him to that standard. But this one is big, so maybe he will speak. You never know. Maybe he'll do his own thing like he has in the past.
Even just like a monologue. Anyways.
That'll wrap us up. Hit follow or subscribe if you have not already. We'll have more of the dominoes off of this move for the remainder of the week. Press conference potentially coming soon. Assistant coaches, the Durant trade. This is finally behind us, and we can set our sights on the rest of the summer. Hope you'll do it right here with us. We'll talk to you then.